Welcome to my channel where we question everything. Today, I'm going to continue with the bits and pieces. And the subject today is the Nord Stream pipeline sabotage, the Duran's recent podcast, and the German Secret Service. Now, a lot of people have been speaking about the sabotage of the Nord Stream 2 pipeline, actually 4 pipelines. And in a recent article by the Spiegel, German newspaper, the CIA has warned the German government of a possible attack on these pipelines. But I'm not sure whether the Germans took notice of that warning. And I don't know why they actually warned the German government, because at the end of the day, the sabotage was in the international waters of Sweden and Danish exclusive zones, and not in German waters. And the Germans have in any case indicated that they will not activate Nord Stream 2, and that the gas flow in Nord Stream 1 has been reduced to 25% of its capacity. And basically, one has to ask who are the culprits, who will benefit the most out of it. That's usually how you try to investigate the matter. And I'm not going to go into details. All I can tell you is that the Swedish National Security Services, the SAPO, is investigating the matter while they think it might be an attack, a possible attack on the Swedish infrastructure. And the Danish people are also responding, and they're going to investigate the matter. And effectively, the whole world is going to investigate the matter. So it's my firm belief that whoever was a culprit will be exposed. Whether we will be notified of the culprit, that's a completely different question. But I'm sure that the intelligence services of the major players are investigating. And with satellite imaging, I believe it's very difficult to hide yourself. So there was an article in the Russian news media by lenta.ru, who said that there were some American helicopters flying in that area, and that there might be the possible culprits. But then again, there's another people that indicate that helicopters are mostly used for submarine detections and for protection of the pipeline. Now, why would an American helicopter be in that region? I don't know. And at the end of the day, you have to decide for yourself who benefits the most. But in any case, I just want to go a little bit off topic, and which is, well, it is described in some of the articles, but there are some seriously mistakes or misrepresentation of the pipeline itself. So I'm talking more today about the technical aspects. And effectively, it's not Nord Stream 1 and 2, because each pipeline has 2 pipelines, and only 3 of them have been damaged. The 4th one of Nord Stream 1 is still functional. Now, in order, you call it, there was an explosion recorded by the seismic scientists in Sweden, so there's no doubt it wasn't a sabotage exercise. I first thought that it might be some trawling of a fishing boat that might trawl, and then the hooks or the anchors would scrape the bottom and maybe pull the pipes away, but the pipes are way too heavy, and it is a steel structure. So just look at Nord Stream 2. It's about 1,200 kilometers long. The pipes have an average diameter of about 1.2 meters. They are steel tubes, which have a wall thickness about 41 millimeter. which is quite thick. And then they are encapsulated in concrete sleeves, which are supposed to keep them at the bottom. And I'll put it like way down cement blocks. And they are supposed to consist out of 100,000 tube sections, each weighing about 24 tons. Now, what amazes me a little bit is that it's a 1,200 kilometer long pipe. Now, I'm not an expert, although I'm an engineer, I am not an expert on gas pipelines, especially on the seafloor. But if I would have imagined and I would have designed it, which is a common practice in standard pipelines over ground level, the pipe should have been divided into sections with control valves, say, well, every 10 kilometers maybe, or every 50 kilometers, but at least it would have been divided into sections so that if you have a leak, you only have to cut off a certain section of the pipeline, and thereby you can isolate a certain, then do repairs in that certain sector. But now, if they haven't done that, which I'm not sure if they have done it, but according to reports, the whole pipeline is full of gas, and all the gas have to flow out. And according to the Danish authorities, it's going to take about a week. And I also see that the Russians are complaining that they are losing a hell of a lot of gas, which was stored in these pipes, and therefore it's a big loss for them. But again, why didn't you put any manholes? All right, manholes is for standard pipes and pipes on land. But why didn't you do something in these pipelines itself? Now, I understand it would be like a difficult thing to do because you have to be able to control them remotely, and then they need electrical services or electrical supply. But surely you can either run electrical cable along the whole length of the pipeline, or you can have intermediate points going up to the shores and thereby feed them, or I don't know. You know, these oil and gas pipelines have different technologies and they can implement various options. But having a 1,200 kilometer pipeline without as a continuous line, that would be a little bit of a irresponsible design from an engineering point of view. And then we have the media going out and making some usually funny statements. And first one, which we could all actually expected that they would say, and I will read you, it's an article from Reuters. It says, although neither pipeline was in operation, they both contained natural gas, which is largely composed of methane, a potent greenhouse gas, which is the second biggest cause of climate change after CO2. And it has raised fears that the disruption could cause a climate calamity, although to what extent is still unclear. Come on, now you make such statement. But in any case, it had to be because you have to be woke. So, according to the Danish authority, the leak is so much methane into the atmosphere, it will have a heavy toll on the environment, as methane is 50 times more damaging than CO2. And the Danes have calculated that climate impact of the gas leak corresponds to about a third of Denmark's total climate impact in 1 year. But it poses no health or other risk to the population. Okay, so that's some nice woke climate change reports. And then most of the first articles I read was basically quoting the Tagesspiegel. And then you must now listen very carefully. The German authorities have said that the damage to the 3 of the 4 Nord Stream pipelines is beyond repair. Those sections can never be used again. Here comes the caveat. The German security service says that the 3 tubes of the pipeline will be unable to be used again unless they are repaired quickly, as a lot of salt water will run in and corrode the pipes. Now, just from a technical point of view, corrosion of a pipe is done by oxidation, which means there has to be present oxygen. And without oxygen, you cannot have oxidation, so therefore you cannot have corrosion. Yes, you can have corrosion with different gases, but in the salt water, seawater, those type of gases are very scarce, and oxygen is the most abundant one. But even in seawater, there is very little oxygen. So, and if you notice, most of you probably have seen some photographs of Titanic and so on, and old ships that have sunk. Corrosion of those steel structures are very little, and it has occurred over tens of years. So corrosion shouldn't be a problem, and these guys shouldn't have even reported it. But what might happen is that the pipes will now fill with water, and sea life will enter it, and maybe attached to the inside of the wall. But at the end of the day, removing those seawater, and if it's not too long, it shouldn't be a big problem. But sea creatures are quite tenacious, and they will quickly react. But one of the biggest problems really is, in my opinion, is that when the pipe now fills with water, then all that water has to be drained again before it can be filled with gas. And that would be quite a major operation. But from my side of view, saying that the pipe is not repairable would be like a policy being spreaded by inexperienced and uninformed people. Because at the end of the day, from an engineering point of view, it's again a matter of how am I building something that is 1,200 kilometers long, cost me billions of dollars, and if anything goes wrong, I cannot repair that. If any engineer decides something like that, then that guy should actually be stripped of his credentials, and no, I think he should actually be locked up. There must be ways that engineers, before they even lay the first pipe, develop techniques on how to repair any leak. So, if you look a little bit further, these pipelines are at a depth of about 80 to 100 meters. And so let me put this off. 80 to 100 meters. Now, a normal diver can go out to 50 meters. More or less, some divers can go a little bit further, but it's all about your capabilities. Each one of us differs. That means scuba diving with normal air. And if you want to go deeper than that, then you have to start using gas mixers. I have done scuba diving. I have been down to 50 meters. And you feel a little bit drunk and disorientated. And that is usually because you get oxygen poisoning. And therefore you have to reduce the oxygen contents with other gases. So firstly, 100 meters is totally capable of an experienced diver, professional diver, go and repair those stuff. And but it's also quite accessible by specialist military trainers or trained personnel. So, but it's not for commercial divers. So whoever did this must have been a professional diver and probably a military asset. Well, we all know about SEALs, but other countries have different types of specialized groups. So basically the special forces of some country that would have actually planted the explosive, or one could have looked at the UAVs. Today's UAVs are fairly sophisticated. But if I would have done it, you still have to locate the pipe. So you have to have a vessel that goes over that area. Then maybe you could have dropped the divers off. Well, you could have identified the location of the pipes. You could have dropped down a guideline to the bottom to guide the divers. You could have dropped them off. Then you could have passed on. And from a satellite imaging system, you wouldn't be able to really see that short stoppage, couple of minutes. And you will go on into a certain direction, and then after a time you will come back and pick the guys up. And from a satellite imaging system, it will be difficult to identify this who is responsible. But the intelligence services are not that dumb. They have good technology. But in any case, I was a little bit deviating. Coming back actually to the repair of the pipeline. Now, they say it's going to take a long time. It might not ever be being able to repair it. And then they talk about the corrosion, which is not really an issue. I mean, apart from the corrosion effect, the walls are 41 millimeters thick, and that's going to take a hell of a long time to grow through and lose their structural capability. So corrosion is not really a problem. And then there's a German company, gas line pipe grid company, Gas-Uni Deutschland, said the damage could be repaired. And it says there are good teams in place to handle pipeline accidents. There are emergency pipe inventories and experts for onshore and offshore, said the managing director Jens Schumann. And he's added that he was relatively optimistic about the prospects of repair work. Now, again, coming back to the engineering point of view, gas is important for your client and for both clients, the seller and the receiver. And time is money. So surely these guys have some projects or some techniques or plans in place to repair those pipes, which can either, well, depending on the damage of the pipe, but I would believe that a section of the pipe has been blasted away. And that can be easily replaced by another pipe, and then underwater welding can take place. Or they can lift the pipes. But if they lift the pipes, then, and they add a piece of pipe in between, then, tolerances, length of pipes, that thing might push the pipes a little bit front and forward, and there's some technical aspects, but if it's not a straight line, it's like a little bit loop of an S type of thing, then that tolerance can fairly easily be accommodated. So, but then it's winter coming and it's going to be a rough sea, but if it's underwater repairs, then unless there are some strong currents and so on, the repair shouldn't be that difficult. I'm not sure how the pipelines were continuously laid by the ship that was originally laying the pipeline. So I'm not totally sure what the effect of winter will have on it. It was quite a sophisticated operation. But I will leave it at that for today. That brings me to the next subject. And what I'm actually going to say now is I don't want to haggle the guys. And I don't want to bad them. But at later stage, I'm starting to... The daily reports by the Duran is all fine and so on. But they had a recent podcast again with Jackson Hinkle. And I was listening to the 44 minutes and so on. And yes, there was some stuff I could agree, but the opening statement by Alexander was a little bit far-fetched. He was talking about the Saudi Arabia and the release of the prisoners and how that can affect and how that all interacts with the sabotage of the pipeline. And well, if you want to look at the effect of the sabotage of the gas pipeline, basically what that's done is that Germany has cut them off from themselves from Russian gas, and they have said they're not going to buy Russian gas and oil, and the Russians or Gazprom has reduced the gas flow in the Nord Stream 1 pipeline. So if there was always a possibility or a backdoor that should something go wrong, that the German government might decide due to public pressure to reopen to open the Nord Stream 2 pipeline in order to solve the problem. And basically, Russia had some leverage over Germany, and Germany had the backdoor for the whole matter. And now, with the sabotage and the destruction of these two pipelines, Germany has no more options. Basically, they cannot retreat or go back on any other any decisions because there is no more backdoor. Now, I can agree in a certain sense, but then Alexander also states that there was some movement or some indication that Germany will go back on their initial decisions, and I don't see anything of that. The statements are still continuing that they will, even an eighth package of sanctions being prepared, with this ridiculous notion of putting an oil price cap on Russian oil, pipeline oil. I mean, come on. This is a seller's market. This is not a buyer's market. Germany and Europe is dependent. It's not Russia is dependent on Europe. Europe is dependent on Russian oil. So I'm not sure how you're going to implement that type of cap. But the decisions and the sanctions are first of all firm in place, and I can see no indication that the government will cancel those sanctions. Yes, there are some deviations, but that has to do more like with fertilizers and food exports and so on that the Russians are actually complaining about. And so I can understand that. But I mean, the eighth sanction has a ridiculous item inside them that they're even going to ban toilet paper from Russia. And one just heard that the only company in Germany that makes toilet paper has filing for liquidation. So, come on, this is starting to get a joke. So, and then they talked on and on and on, but I'm sorry, it's not, I couldn't agree with that, but I'm not going to really deviate that. We all have our different opinions. But it's like connecting dots that shouldn't be connected. And then in any case, then there's also to my third subject, which was the German Secret Service. The German Secret Service, according to media report, has now indicated that they've been supplying the Ukrainians with intelligence and satellite photography and all that since February. And, well, we all should have known about that. And we also know that Americans are doing it, and the French are doing it, and the British are doing it, and so on. Which was all fine. And according to the report, the Germans had their lawyers there, that the lawyers indicated that if they provide this information, then they would not violate international law, and Russia cannot see them as being part of the military operation, therefore they will not be a target. But these things have changed now. That was all part and valid for the SMO, the Russian SMO. The whole situation has changed. There's a referendum going on, which has been completed. These two oblasts and the Donbass two republics are going to join Russia. The Russian constitution and law becomes now part of it and will govern that region. And any attack or any supplying of intelligence is now going to be a direct attack on Russia. And that is how the Russians are seeing it. Because they have been warning the NATO and the West now for a long time. They couldn't do it before because they were, like I stated in my previous video, supporting the Ukrainian militia as a supporting role. But they're not supporting anymore. They are taking over, and now it's the Russian army sitting on that front. And it's Russians going to be killed. And it's Russians that's going to be targeted based on the intelligence of NATO and the Western countries. And that's a no-no. That means a direct attack on Russia. So even supplying the weapons to Ukraine will probably be seen by the Russians as a direct participation in an attack on Russia. So the West have to rethink their approach because the game has changed. So that brings me to the end of my day, today's speech. If you like what you heard, press the like button, and if you didn't like, press the dislike button, and if you want to hear some more, just subscribe to the channel, and until next time, cheers.